I don't want to say this like I know how every business works because I don't. But for my business, I personally think the most important thing is you have to live in the business. I don't see how this can be done remotely, but I also think it's important, even if it could, I also think it's so important for the culture of the company, for the morale of the staff, is working alongside your team. I mean, I will, if a truck shows up and there's a lot of work, you help unload, you work with your team. If you need, if there's trash on the floor as a business owner, you pick it up.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Dan Abel Jr. And Dan started out his journey helping out his family business when he was 10 years old. And then, or after that, or during that time, he also went to high school and college and worked his way through that. And the family business during that period started out as a single one store chocolate store. And after he graduated, he joined that, became or did the business or full time, and they started to build and grow and to build out manufacturing facilities and reinvest and build the business out and continue to expand and to grow that, as well as doing some acquisitions and buying property and facilities and continuing to find success. And so, with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Dan.
Thank you so much for having me. Man, that summed up like the last 15 years, and that was a good trip down memory lane for myself as well.
Absolutely. Summing up everybody's life into 10 or 30 or 45 seconds is a talent that I guess I have. So works out well. But no, so I just gave kind of the quick, high level run through of the journey. But why don't we rewind and unpack that a little bit and tell us a little bit about kind of how the journey got started, kind of growing up from a young age and like working in the family business.
Absolutely. When I was 9, 10, 11 years old, we had one retail chocolate store, and we still have that building today, and it's just a store, but it used to be the main offices, the warehouse, the candy kitchen, the retail store, and we literally grew up with it. We spent, the most amount of time in our home, the second most amount of time in that building, and we owned the property, and so we'll never get rid of it. It's just, it's kind of like the start of everything. But my parents worked in the business. My parents started the business before I was alive, and that was the family business. That was how the source of income, the whole identity of our family was chocolate, chocolate, chocolate company in that original store.
Hmm. Now, so you start up kind of, growing up in that environment, have that original or had that original store and continue to have it, have an opportunity, I'm sure, to, help out in the family business, maybe earn a little bit of money or help out mom and dad, so to speak. Now, as you get going or growing up, you went to high school, went off to college, so maybe kind of fill us in about that part of the journey as to what you studied and kind of what you set out to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I always worked my summers at the store. I in college and in high school. By 1998, we opened a second store closer to the house, and so that was fun to kind of see a store open. I was still really young, but to see from construction to merchandising it to hiring a staff, and we've done so much of that recently. But I remember when store two opened, and there was often times where I would work the retail, whether it was just a couple hours after school or on the weekends as well. So I bounced back and forth between those two stores, and it was really great to. I learned at a very young age that our customers were always just so happy, and usually they came in to the chocolate store for one of two reasons. One is they wanted a little bit of an indulgence for themselves, whether it's a fresh chocolate covered strawberry that we just made, or they wanted to get a gift for a really great occasion, a birthday, an anniversary, a Christmas present, an Easter present. So I felt like we were always with our customers at their most joyous occasions, and it just kind of was it just kind of stayed with me my entire life.
Hmm. So now you did that now just to fill it in. So I think always correct me where I'm wrong, but you went off to college. What did you study, or kind of what was the plan always to go into the family business? Because you mentioned kind of working summer, growing up there, working summers. It was expanding, had a second location. But, was the intent as you're going off to college to study business or chocolatiering or manufacturing or production, or was it initially or headed in a different direction, or kind of fill us in there?
It kind of was I absolutely wanted to go in the family business, and there was no doubt in my mind. And I felt like nothing would have changed my mind being in college. My parents said that they wanted us to all, and they felt that I have an older sister and a younger brother. They felt that all of us wanted to be in the family business, and we had been working from, high school and on. And so my parents had one rule. They said, we want you to go away for 4 years. So we don't really care what you study. We're going to give you the freedom of choice to where you pick. You can stay in the state, but you're not going to live at home. You're going to go away. You're going to, experience dorm life. You're going to experience because, this is going to be your 4 years to kind of really decide what you want to do. And if you want to still, if that's still the plan to come back in the family business, then we're, very excited for it. But if you choose to do something else, no problem. And so I decided on sunny Florida. I thought it'd be a great. If they said you can go anywhere in the country, I said, why not Florida? And they didn't say no. They're like, good idea, So I was like, oh, okay, let's go. So I went down to Florida. I had taken some business courses, but I also had a lot of fun just taking political science courses. I, I was a film minor. I did business courses. I did economics courses, but I ended up finishing out as a political science major. And what I loved about that is, in a way, you know, it's non-binary. Like, math is very binary. It's very linear, but political science uses a lot of it's like a lot of analysis, and you can kind of learn from essays and paperwork. So I really felt it was a good path to really absorb a lot of knowledge, and I also really love history, so I really studied and focused on the American political science side of it. Most of what that has nothing to do with my 9 to 5 job now, but it just kind of gave me a different perspective over the 4 years I was in college to come back into the family business of manufacturing, retail, and candy making.
No, that makes sense. Sounds like it was both a great educational opportunity as well as had a bit of fun along the way. So now you come or go to college for a period of time, go down to Florida, come out, and then come back into the family business. Now, was that kind of taking over the reins, passing on to the next generation? Did you start from the janitor and work your way up, or did you, somewhere in between, or kind of where did you start out and kind of how did you integrate in and continue to build and grow the business?
Yeah, I mean, from a high school perspective, we did everything from the janitor to the way up. And I mean, some days, like even today, I'll go help mop floors. There's really no job that's off limits or should be. I By 2008, it very much was my sister had graduated 3 years before me, so she was already wanted to go in the business, and she was already there full time. My brother was a couple years behind me in school, and it wasn't a passing of the torch just yet. It was, let's guide you until, see where we want to take the business to the next level. And I was very much like I wanted to hit the ground running. So we really knocked on doors and tried to build up the wholesale division because I felt that was the right path at the time. And because part of it was we had this manufacturing location and warehouse and retail storage. So how do we maximize our operation out of that space? To go to another retail store is a pretty sizable investment, but to continuously manufacture for wholesale with the equipment and the space we have was the lowest hanging fruit opportunity. So we started with that. We eventually did both. We eventually opened up another factory. We eventually opened up more retail stores, but we had to prove ourselves and validate that we can get to that level before we made the capital investment.
That makes sense. And so now give us an idea of kind of what period of time or when did you kind of start or rejoin the family business or kind of over what period of time did you kind of transition
Uh,
into
I
this
got
role?
I got back from college on Friday and I went in Monday. So I had the weekend to myself. And, I spent a couple days in Florida. So I think probably graduated on like a Tuesday and then spent the week in Florida and then went to work on Monday. We were looking for, the first year and a half was pretty aggressive with, working around the clock, knocking on doors to try to get additional wholesale accounts. It was paying off. And then in the middle of 2009, so about a year later, we were talking to another local candy company. Wasn't really a competitor. They were kind of a different market, but they're still a candy company in St. Louis. And we started, is there any opportunity to work together? And so we decided it was the best opportunity for us to buy them. And so we started kind of in the beginning. That was when we had two businesses and two facilities. And I went over there for the first day to kind of meet the team and learn the operation, make sure the doors got unlocked, make sure the door got locked, just continuity of business. And then I eventually moved over into that facility and really never went back. So I had an office at the original location that I shared with my sister from when I graduated in 2008 and when I worked summers and previously. And then I moved into the new facility and really learned from that team. And one of the reasons we bought the business, and probably the most important reason, is because the team of candy makers was the best in the world. And so we wanted them to join our team. And so we bought that business for that reason. And their head candy maker in 2009 is still to this day our head candy maker that I work with every day. And so that was kind of the first time where the family was not together under one roof because my mom actually came over to the Lake Forest business as well. So my mom and I were at the one facility, and my dad and sister were at the other facility. And then, of course, 2012, we outgrew both of them. Or 2011, we outgrew both of them. In the 2012, after about a year looking for properties, we put everything under one roof in this much bigger space.
Well, sounds like it was a lot of learning, growth, and a lot of good opportunities as you guys pursue things. So now walk us through. So you expanding, growing, kind of what what was the transition or evolution of the company? Kind of walk us through from that period of time, catch us up to where things are at today.
Yeah, absolutely. In 2011, we were really starting to hit local trade shows and regional trade shows, and we were working with more grocery partners, and we were starting to develop product lines. And so, in the retail days, you would sell a pound box and a 2 pound box of chocolates, and everything would be, typically on a street retail store, you go drive and make, you go drive to the store, and, you make an appointment in your mind. I'm gonna have to go to the chocolate shop today. So you have an intent to spend money and to buy. Well, in wholesale, there's very rare where you are at a grocery store, for example, and then elect to go buy a whole pound, a 20, 30, dollar purchase of chocolate. Normally it's a $5 or $6 chocolate bar or a little 4-piece bag or a box. And so we learned very quickly that we need to make a wholesale product line that's compatible with our gift shops and grocery store chains. And so there was a lot of very quick development that was happening there. And that's when, it was that listening to your customer moment. It was the first time we really listened to our customer and things really took off. So I think that has stayed with us throughout the course of this whole journey is listen to your customer and they'll tell you what the right answer is. And so had we were doubling sales every quarter. It was going so much faster. So once we kind of hit that stride, we were hiring as fast as we could, but we didn't have the parking spots for the staff. So we were parking people across the street and we were doing everything we could. We had a weekend crew because we didn't have enough space in the packing room for to have 15 people. It could only fit 6 or 7. So every growing pain you can imagine, we were going through because we were pushing growth because what I really wanted to do was get to the next level. And the next level was so expensive. That new manufacturing facility from a very small company that we were growing quickly was going to be this multi-million-dollar project. And then on top of that, the overhead to maintain it. And so I wanted to make sure when we got to that we weren't going to hurt the company. And so I pushed as hard as I could. And we were young and we worked 12, 13 hours a day and then, 5 days a week. And then we worked, 8 or 9 hours on Saturdays and did whatever it takes to be the first one in and the last one out. And there's that energy and, it's part adrenaline, it's excitement. And I mean, the education we got in those moments are priceless.
Sounds like quite the education. It's one where you're growing. Growth is a great opportunity and presents a lot of good issues to solve, and yet is still issues nonetheless. So you're going through that growth space, kind of hitting in those. How do we get to the next stage, next the next kind of level for the business? Kind of or as you're overcoming those, kind of now walk us through where, continue to walk us through kind of how are things, where are things at today, kind of still in that growth stage, acquisition, reset next level, world domination, taking on Hershey's or somewhere in between, kind of walk us through where things are at.
Well, there was a time, so 2013, I felt like we were starting to really get out on the national trade shows, and we were starting to get some much bigger customers and really get busy. And, we were hiring new full-time employees, and every stage of the game, there's, all of these side things like you have to have a better benefits program and then make sure you're paying holidays and vacations and then health insurance and dental insurance and retirement plans. And so every, $500,000 of growth, there's another, you break through another threshold. And, as candy makers, as people that think about the next chocolate creation, and that's, or the next packaging design, is that's how our head's spinning. And then there's these external business factors that come into play, and you have to learn very quickly. So there was that in the background. We're really hitting our stride in, like I said, in 2013, 14, 15. And then the middle of 2016, and there was some equipment growth that happened. There was great key employees that have joined the team since then. We were starting to hit 3 national trade shows a year, really starting to get our name out there. And then we were starting to kind of feel tight on our space again. So in the middle of 2016, we're trying to figure out what our next move was. And then by Christmas of 2016, we said, and 2017, we have to do something. And the last thing we want to do is move. We love the building that we're in. And it truly is this concrete bunker. The roof is 16 inches of thick of concrete. The floors are strong. It's just a sturdy fortress, but we knew it wasn't big enough. So by the grace of God, in 2017, the neighbor who was 2 doors down had this food safe warehouse and told us that he was going to sell it. So we had kind of done the math and plotted it out and said, well, what happens if we split the facility of the warehouse down the street and make this just a manufacturing facility? And we decided that that would work, and probably for the next 20 years, because we were a 30,000 square foot manufacturing facility that included the retail store, the offices, the production, candy kitchen, and everything. And this was 25,000 square feet. So we figured by nearly doubling the size of our footprint, that'll take us through 2 decades. And that was in 2016. And he decided that he wanted to sell it in the middle of 2017, which was just fine for the timing. So we ended up acquiring the building, spending 5, 6 months and renovating, cleaning it up, making it to our standards. And in 2018, we were now operating these 2 facilities within 1,000 feet of each other. So not too far, but sometimes it feels very far away when you need something from down the street and your truck driver is at one of the stores and you have to go load it up in your car. But it was a perfect distance. And then that really helped kind of unlock the next chapter as we started going into bigger accounts that had, we used to ship orders that were just, UPS parcel where someone would buy 10 cases at a time. And then we started doing pallet orders by 2016, 2017, 2018. We're doing multiple pallet and in some case truckload orders. So things are it's like the snowball that keeps building and building and building. And it was an exciting time. And we added these new Swiss molding lines to make chocolate bars and molded confections, which was a whole new side of the business for us. And we felt that we were building to something great, but we didn't exactly know what it was yet. I felt like there was this tailwind that was helping and propelling this growth to get us to a level. And of course, it's great to tell the story in hindsight, but truly in 16, 17, and 18, I felt like there was this incredible, wave of energy in the business and that it was going to ignite something. And then it was in early 2019, in January of 2019, that we found our biggest competitor, another local St. Louis chocolate company, Bissinger's, was going for sale. And so, in my fashion, for anyone that knows me or anyone that does a business deal with me, I don't like to, spend 2 weeks on something that can take 2 days. If there's an opportunity, let's just do it and get it done because, the faster and we believe in the right level of diligence and letting the process happen. But I don't, need 10 emails to solve something that can be done in one. Let's just, cut the formalities, get to the point, see if it works. If not, move on. So that was my approach to Bissinger's. We were actually in California at a trade show in 2019, and we're not even a year into this second facility, so we felt good that we had all this additional space and capacity. And we heard Bissinger's was for sale. So instead of calling the broker that was managing it, I called the CEO of the company from California. I said, I heard you're for sale. Do you want to meet? He says, well, we are going to go for, you're right. We're going to go for sale, but we have a process, and the process says, we have a broker involved, and, they can send you the appropriate papers. And if you agree to the NDA, we can get it signed. And I said, okay, if that's how you want to do it, fine. Um, and so it took till March for us to kind of get to the table with them, and we asked a lot of questions. And it was right before Easter in March of 2019. We had probably that, we'd signed a non-disclosure agreement. They sent us financials. We asked a bunch of questions. They sent a bunch of responses. So then I started drawing up my own internal business plan with the family. And we asked for a meeting in March, and they finally granted us a couple of days before Easter. So I went in and um, basically outlined an entire business proposal. I had the ownership in front of us. I brought my family with us. And I said, this is, we'd like to buy the business. This is what we want to buy. This is what we don't want to buy, et cetera, et cetera. We want to do a 60-ish day closing, and, we want to start tomorrow. And, that's when I kind of paused in the conversation, and I said, any questions? And they kind of looked at me like a deer in the headlights. They said, well, we weren't expecting an offer today. And so I kind of looked at myself, well, what were you expecting? What did you think this meeting was about? So, that's just and as they got to know me, they're great people. As they got to know me, they just realized that, we want to move, and we want to, we felt confident in the brand and confident this was the right decision for the company. So what's the point of, you know, like cut the formalities? Let's just go. Let's just dig into this. And they wanted to go through a more formal process. And so it wasn't until about mid-May where we had a signed letter of intent. And then we had to go, much quicker, much faster, because just like our parent company, chocolate, Bissinger's business is 60% based around Christmas. And Christmas doesn't start in December. Christmas starts in August. So it was, middle of May and June, right around that time period. And we knew that we had only a couple months before we needed to be in Christmas mode. And there was a lot of work that had to happen between now and then.
Hmm. So kind of with all of that transpiring, there sounds like a good evolution, figuring things out or building things out, and kind of taking the business and running with it. So kind of where are things at today, and kind of looking out now into the next kind of 6 to 12 months, where do you think or see things further headed?
I think I think right now we're going to determine the next 5 years of Bissinger's, and maybe even longer. I feel like we're in such an inflection point, and there's more energy and excitement in the building right now than I've ever seen. So, in to put it in perspective, in 2024, we were able to purchase the property next door. So right, we closed on February 1st, 2024. It was an old tool and die shop. It was about the size of our facility. We went through it, we did our diligence. We decided the best route was to completely demolish the property and start over. In doing so, we had to source an architect. We already had a general contractor, so the architect starts drawing plans. And the first thing that he said was, how big do you want the building? And I said, well, I want it as big as possible. I want to go edge to edge of the property, not a square foot smaller than we can do. Make it the biggest building you can. So they were able to find and draw up a building to be about 35,000 square feet. We were able to connect it to our current building. So that construction started in January of this year, and we're currently about 2.5 months out from completion, where we're going to have the manufacturing facility is going to be double in size. But not only did we want to increase manufacturing, which we needed to, we were getting very tight. Both of our facilities are completely maxed out. We need more space. We need more parking space. We need more lunchroom space for our staff. We need more space for the packing departments, space for the warehouse, everything and above. So all of that's going to grow. That building two, which was used for fulfillment, for warehouse, for distribution, all of the above, it's all going to be just one dedicated distribution center now, which is phenomenal for our customer base, because most brands actually use third-party distributors. And in some cases, we still will, but we have the ability to be our own distribution center as well for our thousands of independent customers we can ship direct, which we do today. We're just going to be able to do more of it. So that's a really, good competitive advantage that we have as well. But in kind of doing and so and sitting down with my brother, sister, on a daily and weekly basis, we said, what would we love to do differently if we had this space? And we wrote down a couple ideas, and one of them was that we do a lot of free factory tours, and one of the in COVID times we had to stop them because of COVID and social distancing and concern of infecting somebody. But when we opened back up, we had that is the time when we had purchased Bissingers and the factory got smaller because there's more people in it and there's more equipment in it. So it got tighter. So we couldn't do as large of tours and as extended of a tour route as before because, the aisleway where people walked, I put a piece of equipment in there over that time period. So we wanted to say, like, if we can make the factory bigger, we want the tour experience to be bigger. And then we went down this rabbit hole of, well, what if we have a new tourism welcome center? So they start in the welcome center and they end in the retail shop. Okay, well, what, can we do to keep people preoccupied? How about a coffee shop? Well, if we're going to do coffee, let's add food. If we're going to add food, let's add, lemonade and Slurpees and tea. And what about wine? And if we're going to do wine, let's do beer. And then we decided to do that. We applied for our liquor license, and then we decided that why don't add a full liquor bar? So, so now, and then I said, well, what's the coolest bar out there? A speakeasy. So this all brainstormed from new tourism welcome center over here. And now we are opening a whole hospitality division of our company. Um, so we're really excited about that. It's a multi-million-dollar project, and it's by far the biggest thing we've ever done. That has then kind of morphed us into getting into product line extensions. We're going to have our own wine. Bissinger's is partnered with this phenomenal winery in Napa Valley, and they're developing a red wine for us right now, and that's going to be served by the glass and by the bottle. We're also looking at different beverage options, and then do we go into different beverage distribution with that? And we're doing a kind of a packaging refresh as well on the Bissinger's brand. So there are so many things that are happening this year that I think are really going to carry forward for the next several years. And I think it's the most exciting, like every single day this year from January 1st on has been a new level of excitement. I mean, just the other day I went through, the Sherwin-Williams 4-inch thick, you know, book of paint swabs and tile colors and everything for this new space. And so there's just, I don't know, a reason to get out of bed every single day. It's a lot of fun right now.
No, that sounds like it's been a lot of fun, a lot of fun opportunities that have come up, and a lot of good opportunities yet ahead. So it sounds like great areas to expand the business into. So, kind of with that, now as we have reached the present day of the journey, and even looking a bit into the future as far as kind of where things are headed, great time to transition into the two questions I always like to ask towards the end of each episode. So we'll jump to those now. So the first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? When did you learn from it?
I I feel like there's a couple, but the one that sticks out is we did we always like to come out with new packaging, and one time at Bissinger's we took an item that was in a gift box and made it into more of a disposable box. And when we had met with our design meeting team, everyone thought it was a good idea, but we completely made a misstep with the customer base that we thought that they were buying this particular product line for personal consumption, for self-consumption, and they weren't. They were buying it for gift giving. And it seems like a small mistake to me, but it was an item that we sold, to 20 or 30,000 units a year. And it was the one time we were about 6 months into owning Bissinger's, and everything seemed to be going great. Everybody liked the product and the packaging and the transition of ownership. But we like 95% of our complaints were hovered around this particular mishap. So we quickly changed, changed what we did. We went back to the original version and sent an email out and said, you asked, we listened, and we kind of fell on the sword with that one and told our customers that we'll always make sure to listen and continue to, as the brand evolves, try new things. But if it doesn't work, we'll make it right. And I think there's probably bigger ones that we've done, but I always think that memory gets fuzzy after a while. as long as, and that's the one that sticks out to me the most right now.
No, that's a good mistake to learn from, and listening to, hey, if the predominance of the feedback we're getting from customers is regards to one issue or one point, then looking to resolve that and learn from that mistake is always a great one. So that was a fun one to hear. Second question now that I'd like to ask is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb that you'd recommend?
You know, and I don't want to say this like I know how every business works because I don't. But for my business, I personally think the most important thing is you have to live in the business. I don't see how this can be done remotely, but I also think it's important, even if it could, I also think it's so important for the culture of the company, for the morale of the staff, is working alongside your team. I mean, I will, if a truck shows up and there's a lot of work, you help unload, you work with your team. If you need, if there's trash on the floor as a business owner, you pick it up. And all of those little things actually go much farther than normal. I was in a store one time when a customer was just unhappy with life and was taking it out on store manager, and the fact that I stood by the store manager and talked to the customer, and we solved things peacefully where everybody kind of walked away, but in a satisfied, but being there with your team and working with your team and being a part of the business. I spend this will be the longest amount of time I've spent in my office today on just this interview. I'll spend time with email. I'll go over to our stores. I'll go to our distribution center. I've already been on the job site twice today. We have our own machine shop that does our own fabrication. I was at the machine shop, and I'm not one. A lot of business owners and a lot of managers like to do formal sit down meetings, and that's fine too. That's just a style. But I like to pop in. So I've already met with our quality team, our HR department, our operations manager today, our shift manager today, our head candy maker, lead engineer, talk to the foreman on the job site, and it's only half the day's over. And so just kind of being in the business and being involved in the business, I think is so important. And I think that goes back to you have the opportunity because when you're talking to your team and staying in contact all the time, they're giving you feedback and you have to encourage it too. There's a lot of times when employees are afraid to tell you the bad news, but we encourage that. We want to hear all of the feedback. And that's when I hear about our customers. If we're seeing the same complaint from two stores in a row about this product, it could be the product. And it might be time for change. And so we find that living in the business is what makes the business grow.
No, that's definitely, I think, a great rule of thumb and a great takeaway. So, well, now as we do wrap up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be an next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, bissingers.com is easiest way to do it. I'm also on LinkedIn, and we have 3 retail boutiques here in St. Louis, and of course, where our products are sold nationwide at all the Barnes and Nobles and some other specialty boutiques, as well as our website.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, make a new connection. If nothing else, make a new best friend. So, with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been a fun, it's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. Just go to inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along that note, if along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else, if you're a startup, you're a small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you so much for having me.